Hey guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here. Hope you guys are having a great day and a happy new year to everybody, to each and every single one of you whizheads right now. Now, I actually do have PvP videos and new strategies and all kinds of things coming your way for the rest of the year, for the rest of the week, however you look at it. I'm gonna be a content making machine this year and I'm really excited about it. However, I thought that this would be the perfect day to make a video about what I personally think that the community would benefit a lot from this upcoming year. So without further ado, this is what I believe. This is what my head-ass brain came up with in terms of what I think would benefit Wizard101 the most in the upcoming year of 2020. The top 5 updates I want to see in Wizard101 in 2020. I think a very prominent example of how every year Wizard101 kind of keeps on getting better is, you can see it, it's from the Catacombs. Now, what I really love about the Catacombs is that there's a ton of unique bosses, unique cheats, and there's a lot of new OP gear that completely change the meta at level 130. This is just like, I feel like this is something that the game desperately needed, and honestly, there's a reason why what I'm about to say is at the bottom of this top 5 list. I think coming in at number 5, something I really want to see in 2020 is a serious challenge at Endgame. Now, here's the thing. It's not like the game doesn't have that right now. The 3 main bosses, the Renegade, Sathish, and the Devourer, those are all examples of really awesome endgame bosses that are all unique and they have really good drops. I think where it is a little bit of a miss, it's that a lot of the gear that people like to use from this update, which is, you know, the robe, the boots, and the hat, and maybe, I guess, the theme, but, you know, not as much for most people. Those pieces of gear aren't from the challenging bosses. Not to mention, they also added, like, you know, a non-farming alternative so that now, if you really wanted, you could get the most powerful gear from all these instances from the crafting recipe boss right over here. So as you guys can see, like, I mean, if you really want to get any of this stuff, all you really gotta do is craft it using, you know, just extracts and salts and crystals you farm for from anybody, you know, in the Catacombs. And yes, I like that that's very inclusive. I just think that there should always be something that's very challenging that offers a very rare drop, and we really just haven't had that since Charter. I'm about to show you guys a piece of gear that took me, I think, 8 years to get in this game. This piece of, where is it? This piece of gear right here took me 8 years to get in the game. It took me 8 years of farming. I guess I played the game for 8 years until I had it, so maybe subtract the amount of time that Charters didn't exist. Either way, we're looking at years and years of time put into getting this amulet, getting this item, and there's a reason why it's so good. Compared to every Morganth amulet, it's actually better. Compared to most gear, even right now, in terms of how the meta works, it is actually very good. What the Amulet of Divine Influence shows is that you can have something that's super rare that doesn't necessarily break the game, and it rewards people who spend a lot of time playing the game, especially if they put in the effort of going through challenges. Tartarus for level 90s was a very challenging boss. For anyone to have this at that time was a very serious thing, and even now, it's like a status symbol almost, that you actually went through all this effort of farming a really hard boss. It takes hours and hours for even a good run, it'll take like an hour, and this is a very small drop chance. The fact that all of these things combine into one item makes this really special, and I think right now that's lacking. Don't get me wrong, I do think it's a huge amount of grinding to even get like something like the Vanguard boots, like even something like this. It's not even the best piece of gear. This itself takes hours and hours of farming for extracts and other reagents to craft it, but I still think what the game desperately needs is a really hard boss. It's still a challenge for level 130s, something at the level of the Devourer, or at the level of like the Renegade Druid, you know, things that are a struggle. And I still think there needs to be something that's a rare drop, that it's definitively better than the rest of the gear, but not so much so that, you know, using any other thing is like the worst position, puts you in the worst position, you know what I'm saying? I just think that they really nailed it with this amulet, and we just haven't seen something like a rare drop at an end game level, and I really think that in 2020, I hope we get something like that, something that is clearly better, but not so broken that if you don't have it, you can't PvP, or you can't have anything close to good stats. That's just my opinion maybe though, but let's move on to number 4. I think that we need more equipment trading options in this game. You can already trade TCs, so I don't really see why you can't trade equipment. Now, I get that maybe equipment, you know, like, let's say you get, like, a myth drop from a boss, and someone gets a storm drop, and I trade it so that my storm is OP and their myth is OP. I see why some people might have a problem with that, because then it makes it less valuable of an item. But what I do think is that, for one, if it's super rare, make it no trade no matter what, and two, at least start rolling it out for other things. I think one thing that we really should already have a trading system for is reagents. There's some reagents that are completely useless, even though they are kind of rare. The things that come to my mind are things like vines. I have 59 vines, and I can guarantee you I have a good few 36 braided vines, and these aren't easy drops at all. I have Comet Tails, I have Cobalt, I have Draconium. These aren't things that you should just expect to always have. However, right now, for me, they serve no purpose, and I feel like there are some people who could use this. So what I think would be really, really cool is maybe make a bazaar for reagents that are specifically too rare to be sold. Maybe you can make it in such a way that either with arena tickets or some other form of currency, you can make a way for people to get reagents that they need by selling reagents that they don't need. A third thing that I hope that, you know, maybe this isn't like a concrete thing, but something that I just want Wizard101 to, like, you know, go in this direction. Right now, if you're an ice and you want to do PvP, there's only one solid set that makes sense for you to use. A Crocopatris hat or something that gives a lot of damage, Dragoon's Icy Armor, Dragoon's Boots, Sky Captain's Boarding Hook, Wolflet's Lancet of Shivers, Duelist Daredevil Ring, and a triple damage double resist pet. Obviously, you can make slight tweaks here and there. My pet has Infallible, other pets might not. You know, I use the hat, and other people might not want the resist on a hat. They'll put more damage. I get it. There is some diversity at max level ice PvP. What I'm trying to say, though, is that right now, when it comes to, like, new updates, there's always just one set of gear that's really good, and I don't see the point in that. I think that completely defeats the purpose of making it, like, so you can customize your wizard. I think that there should have been 3 versions of Dragoon's Icy Armor, and there should have been, this, for example, would have been a very high resist, high block kind of thing, and there could have been maybe a version that gave less resist and maybe some damage or less health and some pierce. And I feel like what it could create are options. Options are really, really important when it comes to the health of an end game. It makes it so that there isn't just one thing that everyone is trying to get, and it makes it so that when you're PvPing someone, it really, really makes it important to know what stats are rocking before you just go for it. Right now, if I'm going against an ice, I know what they have. I know they have around 60-ish resist, I know they have around 100-ish damage, and I know they're gonna have 9,500 health around that. So the problem is, you shouldn't know what someone's stats are just based on their school, and at Visionary, that is completely the case right now, and honestly, I think that's a shame, because if you had more customizing options, and Pierce Jewels, and Health Jewels, and Block Jewels, like, all those, like, they could have had that, but again, it's the same problem, where certain jewels are always going to be the best. You know, I feel like just customizing a little bit more, maybe making flat damage jewels a lot more of a viable option by making the damage on them much higher, so maybe not everyone just goes for Pierce. You know, maybe someone says, you know, screw Pierce, I just want a ton of damage. Making simple little changes like that and making it so that you can customize your stats a lot more, I think that would do a lot for this game. And obviously these are things that would have to be rolled out in test run first. You can't just put out gear and make it like on a spectrum without seeing whether people will exploit some massive weakness in the design. You know, I get it. This is something you gotta test. But I definitely think right now, if you look at an ice wizard, they're gonna look like mine, and I think that's a shame. I definitely think we need more diversity of gear and more options when it comes to future updates in Wizard101. But let's move on to number 2. I think this one goes without saying. This is something that everyone wants. This is very high on the list because I think that Pirate 101 has a situation like this, so I don't even think it would be that hard for them to code, because from what I understand, you know, if you have the same people developing 2 different games, and one game has one thing, you could probably move it on to the other game. I'm talking about a quicker combat option. There should be a way to fast forward through cutscenes first off, so that you don't have to just wait through a cutscene you've seen hundreds of times while farming. And the actual rounds, there should be a way to speed it up. Now, I'm not saying that you click on a card and click pass all the animations. I'm saying speed up the animations. I think there should be like a thing where everyone can agree to go on 2 times speed, and maybe they could do it. Again, I'm not sure if this is like an invalid thing to ask for. I'm not sure how, like, you know, realistic this is, but this is something I've seen asked for a lot, and it would definitely make it so that some mobs that you farm that are just pretty much just really hard because they just take so long, it would make them a lot more, you know, I don't know, They would make them a lot more doable. Some examples that come to mind that don't have cutscenes are like Aphrodite. Aphrodite is just full of bosses that literally just Forest Lord spam you. And Forest Lord, if you guys don't know, is one of the longest animated spells. And if you have a Myth Forest Lord, a Death Forest Lord, the Life Forest Lord, if you have all of those, I think it would be a lot more fun to farm it if maybe those Forest Lords, either maybe that specific spell was sped up, or maybe, you know, the entire battle could be, you know, commonly agreed upon to speed up by, like, you know, 2 times or 3 times. I don't think that's that crazy because, I don't know, like, when you use, like, Cheat Engine or something, not that I use it, but I know that at the beginning of the round, like right after everyone's done paying the cards, the system has already processed what's going to happen. That's how Cheat Engine works. You can tell what's going to happen in that round. So clearly it already exists that after you click on those spells, that round is done. So why not speed up what the player sees? Make it so that, you know, the player can catch up to the system. I think that would be a really cool idea. I definitely think it would make farming a lot more easier and a lot less tedious. So I definitely want to see something of that nature in 2020. Now let's move on to numero uno. I'm really optimistic about this one. I think the biggest change that 2020 Wizard101 needs is a complete overhaul of how shadow pips work. I know that matchmaking is a problem. I know that there are other RNG elements in the game like mantles and wild bolts and insane bolts. I know that crit healing is pretty, like, you know, that's something a lot of people have a problem with. The fact that a crit heal does 2.5 times, whereas a regular crit does 1.3 times. I still think everybody can agree on this. At max level, the prevalence of shadow pips have ruined the meta, and especially now with shadow pip chance as high as ever, there are games that can end simply because you get a shadow pip, and there's no other element in this game that determines a game more than shadow pips. Now, there are tons of suggestions that I've seen, there's tons of suggestions that I've also made, but here's the bottom line when it comes to shadow pip. As a numerical value, the amount of times you should be able to get shadow pips in a game needs to be lower. There should be no reason for you to get 10 shadow pips in the span of even like 30 rounds. There should be no reason why you get shadow pips on the first round. There should be no reason why you should gain shadow pips in Shrike. There are severe balancing issues when it comes to shadow pips right now, and they need to be addressed in 2020. I think PvP could benefit so much. There are simple solutions to this. I think maybe just completely just reduce shadow pip chance in general. Shadow pips are broken for 2 reasons. 1, because they let you do a lot of damage, but 2, because of how often you get them now. Maybe even like making the current chance, maybe even like just dividing it by 2. That would relieve a lot of the pressure a lot of people feel. Instead of making it so that every round they're scared that their opponent's just going to win from a shadow pip, maybe make it that every other round they're scared that they're going to lose to a shadow pip. And then beyond that, then, you know, maybe just change how Shadow Shrike and shadow pips work. I'm of the opinion that if you're in Shrike, not only should you not be able to use shadow enhanced hits, you shouldn't be able to even you shouldn't even be able to gain shadow pips. That's right, if you go into Shrike and you have 2 shadow pips, I think that every school has tons of tools, especially at Visionary, where you do not need another shadow pip to win, and you most certainly don't even need to use shadow enhanced spells within Shrike to win. Shadow pips are my #1 problem from 2020. I think it makes a lot of the already existing problems a lot worse. The RNG from other spells and the first place advantage. Shadow pips make all of that 10 times worse. But yeah, man, these are just some of the things I've been thinking all year, and I wanted to put them into a video. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope, you know, these things are taken seriously. And if you have anything that you want to see in 2020, now is the time to put it in the comments. Drop a comment letting me know what you want to see in 2020. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave a sub if you're new. And as always, there's tons of links in the description. My Twitch, my Twitter, my Discord, my Instagram, and my Patreon if you want to support the content monthly. As always, if somebody has not told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. So stay awesome, brother. And yeah, yo.